Hello! You need to get yourself a pen and a pencil ready to write on something. Okay, so get yourself a pen and a pencil and find a song that's 4 to 5 minutes long. It could be a bit shorter, it could be a bit longer if you want. That's going to be your timer for your first task. So pause the video here while you get those ready. Okay, so hope you've got something to write with and something to write on and that song ready to go. Here are your first job. You need to answer these 5 questions. A substance has a pH of 5. How would you describe it? What pH would you expect a strong alkali to have? Water would have a pH of something. A substance has a pH of 9.5. How would you describe it? True or false? Hydrochloric acid is a very strong acid, so it would have a pH of 4. When you've done those 5 questions, if you've done them within the time limit, try and annotate this picture. What's it trying to show? We've got numbers from 0 to 14 of different colours, and we've got some examples of what those numbers might represent. So pause the video here, start your song, and start answering those questions and making notes about this little picture. Okay, hopefully you've answered those questions now and your song's finished, and you've made some little annotations about this picture. Here's what I have done. So I've got, number 1, a pH of 5 is a weak acid. A strong alkali would have a pH of about 12 to 14. Water would have a pH of 7. A substance that has a pH of 9.5 is a weak alkali. It's false. Hydrochloric acid is a very strong acid, but it would have a pH of 1. Okay, a pH of 4 or 5 is a weak acid. This is a strong acid. Okay, so a bit of a tricksy question that. And I've got examples of different things that correspond to these different pH values, and I've labelled it with neutral up for 7, and everything above neutral is alkaline in the numbers. Everything below 7, everything below neutral is acidic. Okay, so lovely to see some of the examples that you might have put on this scale. So, this week, okay, we're going to be looking at ecosystems, but first I want to highlight a couple of bits of work that you uploaded over just before half term and this week. You've done some brilliant work looking at variables. Here's just a couple of examples where we've got a couple of tables. Some people have done some graphs and lovely conclusions. On the whole, really, really good standard of work, so keep that going. I've no idea what a kangaroo jump is, which is partly why I've included this, but some really good work on the whole, so well done Year 8. Now, as I say, this week we're looking at ecosystems. Now, it's quite a big topic. It's a really important topic in biology. It's really important. It's how animals and living things exist together in nature, how they interact with each other, how living systems work and don't just die off. Okay, so one of the big parts of this is about how we can assign labels to the different things within an ecosystem, within habitats. Okay, now in Year 7 you will have done lots of work on food chains. Okay, so this on the left is an example of a food chain where we've got grass. Okay, it's a producer, it's a plant. It gets its energy from photosynthesis. It's eaten, the grass is eaten by a grasshopper. Okay, it's a primary consumer. It doesn't get its energy from photosynthesis, it eats plants, it eats the grass. Okay, it's a herbivore, it only eats plants. The grasshopper, okay, is consumed by the frog. It's a consumer. It's a secondary consumer. This is the primary. This would be the secondary consumer. The frog is a carnivore. It doesn't eat the plants. It just eats the grasshopper. Okay, and the frog is consumed. It's eaten by this hawk. Okay, another example of a consumer. This is a tertiary consumer. Primary 1, secondary 2, tertiary 3. Okay, this is another example of a carnivore. Carnivore eating meat. Okay, eats animals, eats other animals. Okay, one of the things that students will really, really often get wrong whenever they look at food chains is they get the arrows the wrong way. A lot of the time, they'll draw arrows down. They'll draw an arrow from a grasshopper to grass. That's wrong. Okay, these arrows, they're not really showing what eats what. They're looking at where the energy is going. So the energy of the grass is going into the grasshoppers. The energy of the grasshoppers is going into the frogs when they're consumed. Okay, they show the flow of energy. So be careful with these arrows. Now this is quite a simple picture. We can look at a more complicated picture, which is the food web, which I've got in the middle. So this is different. This would be a sea-based habitat. Okay, and we've got some phytoplankton and they're consumed by krill and by other herbivore zooplanktons. Okay, and then the krill are eaten by the fish. They're eaten by leopard seals, they're eaten by birds, they're eaten by seals, they're eaten by carnivorous zooplankton, they're eaten by squid, they're eaten by penguins, they're eaten by lots of things. Okay, the fish are eaten by leopard seals and penguins, and by elephant seals. Okay, the fish eat the zooplankton and the krill, and some of these other herbivorous zooplankton that eat this phytoplankton. Okay, so this is quite a complex map, quite a complex picture. Okay, and it's made up of lots of different examples of food chains. Okay, I want you to have a look, spend 60 seconds, see if you can spot some examples of food chains. You can jot them down or you can just think about them. But think how many food chains can you think of? How many food chains can you get from just this one picture? Okay, give that a go. Pause the video and see how many you do. So, there's lots. There's lots. Here's one example. So we've got phytoplankton, okay, then we go to krill, then we go to fish, then we go to leopard seal, then we go to this toothed whale, okay, toothed whale's at the top. Okay, now, there's something that I've noticed in all of the different examples of food chains that I could come up with this food web. I always start with one living thing. I always start with one thing. What is that one thing I always start with? Okay. I want you to say it out loud in 3 seconds. It's the phytoplankton. It's this one. They always start with this. Food chains will always start with some sort of producer. Always start with some kind of plant. Okay. And then they will finish with the top predator, the top consumer. So in this case, it would either be these toothed whales, killer whales, or the sperm whale, because nothing eats them. Okay, everything else is eaten, is consumed by something else. Okay, now these pictures are really important to biologists because they can help us understand what can happen to ecosystems when different things are affected. So, for instance, what would happen to, let's say, what would happen to, say, the squid? What would happen to the number of squid if some fishermen came in and caught nearly all of the fish that were in this ecosystem? So they got the really big nets that was only able to catch this fish, and they got rid of all of these fish. What happened to the number of squid? What do you think might happen? Okay, now I think the squid numbers might go up because there's no fish eating them. Okay, so we'll have more squid, which might provide more food for the elephant seal. So the elephant seal's population might increase over time because they've got more access to squid because less fish are eating them. Okay, what do you think would happen to this ecosystem if a fisherman came along and took out all of the krill from that patch of ocean? What do you think might happen to some of these animals? Because there's a massive number of connections in this food web. I think if we took out these krill, it would have a massive impact. Because so many different things eat these krill. So if we took out the krill, the fish would only be able to eat these two. They'd only be able to eat the plankton and the zooplankton. So there'd be much fewer fish in the sea. There wouldn't be as many fish. They don't have their main source of food. And if there isn't any fish, we wouldn't get as many leopard seals or as many penguins, which would mean that our smaller toothed whales might have to eat more of these baleen whales. Okay. And if we didn't have as many, if we didn't have the krill and we didn't have as many fish, these leopard seals, okay, would then have to eat much more content of birds. Okay, so there can be some really difficult and interesting things that can happen when we look at these food webs and we ask ourselves questions like that. And that's part of what your activity this week is going to be, boys and girls. So, your first job, okay, I've got a different food web. So this is a woodland food web where we've got oak leaves, grass, snails, hedgehogs, worms, voles, weasels, fox, owls and rabbits. Your first job, you need to draw a picture of this food web, okay, and you need to label each thing in it, either a consumer or a producer, and a carnivore and a herbivore. Okay, so You need to label oak leaves a consumer or a producer. You need to label oak leaves a carnivore or a herbivore, or maybe not anything, because it's, well, I'm not going to tell you why, but think about why it won't be one of these two things. You need to label up the food web with these labels. Okay, that's your first task. Your second task, okay, you need to get 2 food chains from this food web. Okay, so I can see a nice simple food chain. I can see oak leaves, vole, owl, and I'd write that down. I'd write oak leaves, vole, owl. Can't use that one. It's mine. Okay, but there's lots and lots of different food chains there. Okay, it should have at least 3 different things in the food chain. Okay, you can't just say oak leaves, snail, and then stop. Okay, you need to have a whole chain. That's the second task. The third task is to try and answer these 10 questions. What does a hedgehog eat? What do foxes eat? What animals eat oak leaves? Name 1 predator in the food web. Name 1 prey in the food web. What would happen to the number of snails if a disease killed all the hedgehogs? Why would this happen? What would happen to the number of owls if all the voles died? Why would this happen? And which other animals might the death of the voles affect? Okay, so your first task, draw a diagram of this food web and label it with consumer, producer, carnivore and herbivore. Then extract 2 different food chains from this food web. And then third task, answer these 10 questions. Okay, take a picture of your work, take a screenshot of your work, save it as a document, however it is, and upload it to class chats. I hope you have a fantastic week and take care of each other, take care of your families. Bye bye.